So what we're going to talk about today is employee relations in the fast food industry and in the USA. So the things that we're going to cover is just some basic information about the US fast food industry, employee relations in the USA, both including culture and legislation, and employee working conditions in the US fast food industry. So just as an introduction, McDonald's was founded in 1940 as a restaurant operated by Richard and Morris McDonald in San Bernardino, California, United States. So there's just some information about how McDonald's has developed in the USA. There's almost 13,000 restaurants in the USA, and they operate 70% of the outlets of US restaurant chains, and approximately 2.5 million fast food workers work in the USA. This slide shows a little bit more about the revenue that McDonald's can create over in a year, and how much financial benefit they can have on a person. And the graph on the right shows the top 20 fast food chains in America, and you can see how far McDonald's is in comparison to a lot of the other bigger fast food chains. So just some challenges that are faced by the US fast food industry. It's a stigma surrounding it, meaning that there's a lot of unhealthy options. So customers want to seek healthier choices. There's poor working conditions and low wages. So a lot of the workers in fast food do have poor conditions, and there is low wages. And also they're losing business to some of the more prestigious, if you want to say, fast food restaurants such as Grilled and Nando's, which are fast but not as fast, and low price but not as cheap. The quality is perceived as higher. The next thing I'm going to talk about is cultural dimension in the USA. So fast food culture has permeated in the American society, and people spend much more money on fast food than any other consumption. And at the same time, McDonald's is a powerful symbol of America's economy, as it adds 90% of jobs in a year. The combination of fast food values and life. Fast food values are exported to other parts of the world as cultural and industrial exports. So fast food joins Hollywood movies, blue jeans, and pop music as one of America's most important cultural exports. However, unlike other commodities, fast food is eaten directly by consumers. Therefore, it has a more hands-on approach in impacting culture. So secondly, we're going to talk about McDonald's culture more specifically. So people centricity, so that is reflecting the importance of supporting people. So it is said in the company's core values and standards of business that there is an emphasis for McDonald's to encourage employees to engage in management to help improve their processes and procedures. The next one is individual learning. So McDonald's organizational culture highlights the importance of lifelong learning. To facilitate individual learning, the company offers training and development opportunities through Hamburger University by giving internships, global mobility, and leadership development programs. Organizational learning. The firm aims to use individual learning to help organizational knowledge push businesses forwards to new height of performance. McDonald's applies this feature of its organizational culture through policies, programs, and meetings that encourage employee feedback and knowledge sharing. Lastly is diversity and inclusion. McDonald's recognizes the importance of diversity and inclusion in optimizing HR capabilities to deal with an increasingly diverse market. To ensure support and diversity, feedback from employees, consumers, and employers are always ways to ensure that they improve in the business. The next one we're going to talk about is the legal dimension of the USA. So at the national level, there's three main points we want to talk about. So industrial relations climate has commonly been used to describe the quality of labor management relations in the organization. It has been seen as reflecting the perceptions of organizational members and the practice of union management relations within the enterprise. The industrial relations climate of the organization will be affected by a number of factors, Gordon and Ladd point out that union and management officials are instrumental in establishing the tone of contract negotiations. Management, for example, sometimes uses its power to limit the subjects of bargaining and to extend unilateral control over the labour processes. Therefore, unions and employees are less inclined to take a cooperative approach to the resolution of conflict. Alternatively, where unions and employees are integrated into the decision-making process, a climate of goodwill and trust is more likely to emerge. So in the United States, Katz in both 1983 and 1985 have examined the impact of industrial relations climate. So on a range of performance measures, they both found that significant relationships between organizational levels of industrial relations climate and the outcomes of direct labor efficiency and product quality. A poor attitudinal climate between union and management, high levels of formal grievance cases, and difficult contract negotiations not only were indicative of ineffective conflict management, but were also strongly associated with poorer levels of performance. Katz also studied General Motors and their performance, and it was found that a cooperative industrial relations climate was correlated with a lower absence rate among employees, higher productivity, and higher labor efficiency rates. There is an extensive research to indicate the existence of dual commitment, which is strongly dependent on the nature of the union-management relationship, which is the last thing I'm going to talk about. It can be seen through the academia that there is a favorable industrial relations climate will be associated positively with both organizational commitment and union loyalty. In contrast, we would expect a more antagonistic union management relationship, that would lead to lower levels of allegiance to both the company and the union. The next thing I'm going to talk about is the states level. So in the absence of unions and other forms of employee representation, the wages and the working conditions of American fast food workers are set by employers, constrained only by the competitive environment and by minimal legal regulation. This is known as in the USA as a free enterprise. So then there's a legal principle governing the ER in the US, and that is employment at will, which means that workers have no right to ongoing employment, and employers have no legal obligation of fairness. Through this, it is evident that there are minimal unfair dismissal laws within the industry. And this case is the case in all 52 US states except one, Montana, who have had legal legislation preventing this since 2000. However, there are exceptions to this, as anti-discrimination law policies and acts are strongly abided by and well enforced in the US. Statutes such as Title VIII of the Civil Rights Act or the Americans with Disability Act make it illegal to fire someone based on race, sex, religion, national origin, age, or disability. Additionally, employees are prohibited to dismiss employees without reason if they have agreed to it in contractual terms that specify conditions of dismissal. So this can be seen in large fast food companies such as McDonald's, as they set employment policies reflective of these laws for company-owned stores and guide franchises to adopt similar employee practices. The absence of legislation gives greater autonomy for workers' action. They have greater freedom and minimal restrictions on what they can and cannot do. However, federal legislation does regulate job and hours of work for the miners, whilst also stating that employees are entitled to overtime work beyond 40 hours a week. The last thing I'm going to talk about is employment and working conditions in the fast food industry. The American fast food industry was built on the promise of low prices and fast food. To maintain profitability, employees must keep labor and operating costs down. Therefore, to meet this competitive stress and pressure in legal and cultural settings, employees are granted discretion to maintain low wages, minimal benefits, and tight staffing. As aforementioned, there are numerous fast food industry features that makes it difficult to organize a union. Features such as majority of fast food industries do not employ workers directly, as they are employed by the franchisees. Therefore, it becomes difficult and expensive to organize the unions. Seniority rights and retirement plans are also key issues emphasized by unions, which are of little interest to younger generations because they are the primary sources of employees in this industry. Major company-owned and franchisees owners own fast food outlets are anti-union and strongly oppose this unionization because of the younger generation's interests. And another factor is the routinization of work that increases turnover rate. Fast food is predominantly assembled and prepared outside of the restaurant, and that allows for quick service inside. And though fast food work is unskilled, it is difficult during busy periods as managers limit labour costs by minimizing workers per shift and by eliminating idle time. Wages and benefits vary between fast food corporation outlets and franchisees because franchisees try to balance the compensation and profitability. So that was the end of our presentation, and hopefully you enjoyed it.